Hello everyone, welcome to this live Q&A property show. So we're here to discuss accommodation this evening, just to give any sort of guidance, advice on finding a property, any sort of help we can provide, answer questions, that sort of thing. If you had any sort of questions, you can send them in the comments, and I'll definitely try to respond to everyone. Okay, so for those who have been following the live sessions and sort of the videos online, we've spoken last time in regards to guarantors, advance rent, and why you probably will need these if you're coming as a student with dependents. It doesn't apply as much if you're coming on a skilled work visa where you have employment already, so you have proof of income in the UK. If you don't have proof of income, that's where it becomes more of an issue, and it's a bit more technical to get you a place. So I'll quickly go over those issues again, just for anyone who is new to the channel and probably doesn't know in depth about these issues. Okay, so there's three things you need if you're going to rent sort of an apartment in the UK. So for England, if you're renting somewhere in England, you need to have completed your right to rent on the government website. That is not always easy to do from Nigeria. Most times you find this when you come here and get your biometric card. That's when you'd be able to get that sorted. So that's the first thing. The next thing is being able to prove your income. So you have to show you can afford the actual property that you're bidding for. Most times when students have arrived, they've not yet gotten a job, so we understand there's that break in between there before you get something and the period where you're searching for a property. Now this is where a lot of people get stuck because they're not quite ready for that process, and that's where advance rent comes in. So advance rent means paying a few months ahead to sort of guarantee the owner of the property to say, okay, if we've paid 3 months ahead, at least that gives us time to get a job in the UK and then start paying rent sort of on time. So every landlord will require that. Most of them, especially if you're not working yet, you need to show you can keep paying the rent. So that's where that issue comes. So it's just to prepare people's minds. I think is the main issue we're finding. A lot of people are not quite ready for that level of expenditure, which is fine. We totally understand that. Well, it's just to explain to you why it's being done, so at least you understand the reasoning behind the checks. So yes, the final thing you need is possibly a guarantor. Now, why guarantors are required as part of your referencing is as well sort of part to do with the affordability issue, in the sense that if you're not able to pay at certain points, they would fall back on your guarantor to make that payment. So not every property requires it, but quite a few of them, if you don't have a job, they will still require you to have a guarantor as well. And that's a service we provide as part of what we do. We can offer you a guarantor service. So a lot of people find out that when they start searching for properties on their own and they get to the referencing, these are the things that come up. And if you're not quite ready for it, then yes, you could get some issues there. But that's just a quick overview of what you actually need to rent in the UK. Today as well, I thought I'll touch on some things like we spoke about last time as well, in terms of bills included or not included in your rent. Now, a lot of times when people come to us, we ask, what is your budget? What are you expecting to pay for a house or a flat? And it's just for people to understand a bit how bills work. If you have the keys to your own property, your own household, where it's just your family living in there, you don't share with anyone else, then you don't get bills included usually. because you're responsible for everything in the house. So that would be council tax, water, electric, and gas. So you'd be responsible for paying those bills. Now, the issue comes with where people think it will be included in their bills. That the inclusive bills is only when you are renting a room in a shared apartment. So if you're sharing a place and you're renting one room, so you share the bathroom and the kitchen, then bills would normally be included in those sort of situations, but not for owning your own property. Well, not owning, but having your own flat or apartment sort of thing. So it's just to clear the air on that. So I sort of spoke last time about what you should expect to pay for bills for a typical household. Of 4 to 5, say 2-3 kids or 2 adults. On electricity, you'll probably be spending, close to £200 a month. So these are things you have to factor in on top of what you are expecting to pay for rent. Most times you may still have to pay council tax, because even though council tax is free for students, because you're going to be living in the household with a dependent, then it's not totally free anymore, because the free council tax is based on the makeup of the household. So if it was just a student or just 2 students living in the house, council tax is free. As soon as you live with one person that's a non-student, then you sort of have to pay council tax. So because there's a student in the household, you will pay, but it will be reduced by 25%. So that's the discount you get as being a student in that household. So that's all how it works with council tax. So it just depends on who is listed on the tenancy. If it was only the student, for instance, I know there's some situation where students are just coming with children, that sort of thing, then your council tax is free because it's only you listed as the adults in the household. However, if you're coming with a partner and they're dependents, then yes, you will have to pay some council tax. Some households use gas as well, so you might have electric bill and a gas bill. So that's another thing to factor in. With gas, because it's winter now, a lot of people coming in December, January, you might find you're paying quite a lot of gas now, but that goes down in the summer where there's less heating. So you probably will spend about 100 to 150 a month on gas as well. Water is free in some areas as part of sort of your rent. In other areas, you might have to pay a small fee for water, about £50 a month. So we're speaking of electric, council tax, water, and gas. So those are sort of the main utilities you have. So these are the things you will need to pay and factor into your rent budget. So if you're thinking, oh, I want to pay sort of £1,000 a month in total with bills, then that leaves you only about £600 in terms of what you can afford, in terms of what you can rent. Another thing we get quite a lot is people coming to us and you've already seen what is on the market, and then you say, oh, let me try SoftLandings, maybe they can get something cheaper. The truth is, it will be very rare where we can get anything that's less than what's on the market. It's the market is what it is. We cannot suddenly there are people asking to find places for 600 where it's £1,000 in that area. We can't work any sort of magic. I wish I could. But there are fixed costs to the landlord in terms of a mortgage, bills they have to pay, and a set margin, what they make as a profit. So even during negotiations, we can sort of negotiate sometimes when a property has been on the market for quite a while, so for some weeks or months, and then we can sort of negotiate a cheaper rent where we offer slightly less than the asking price. But most times that will usually be about 5%. So it's not anything drastic, it'll be like from 750 to 725, that sort of thing. So it's just important to be really realistic about what you expect to pay and what you will get for what you pay, which leads into another important topic in terms of what you need. I touched on this a bit last week as well. So it just depends on the makeup of the family. It's quite strict with the sizing of accommodation that you need to take when you have children, especially when they're coming to the ages of about 10. And if they're different genders, like girls and boys, they need to have separate rooms from about the age of 10, so they can't have the same room ideally. So that factors into how many rooms, I mean, if you have 3 children, it's very unlikely that you can rent a 1-bedroom place. And we get a lot of requests like that where people are quite ready to go for a smaller place, which is fine. But you have to be wary about the regulations, what's happening wider, and how these things will, eventually, questions at the GP, like at the doctor or at school for children, you'll soon find out that they may be in an overcrowded situation, and that's not something ideal which you really want to. So we advise people, depending on the amount of kids you have or dependents, to be a bit realistic about the size of property you need. Sometimes you can squeeze a little bit, which is understandable. The same sort of things you can walk around. So for, say, a 2-bedroom for 3 kids for a short period of time. But in reality, if they're all boys or all girls, yes, they can share one room, have bunk beds, that sort of thing. But it will always be expected that mom and dad are in one room, kids, and how that works out. So asking for a 1-bedroom property with 3 children is like, where would the parents go? Where would the children go? And it's just not going to work, So, that's one people need to be wary about. If you've got kids that are close to 10 or above 10, then it becomes a bit more important in your circumstances to factor in. If you're coming with sort of teenagers, girls can stay together, boys can stay together. After a certain age, they can't mix, and you will need different rooms for them. So I mean, we're talking about accommodation, but just to put it out there, I mean, you've seen our page. We do other things as well, like foreign exchange for people who are here already. So we give you quite favorable rates, and most times pay out the same day for amounts under 1,000 or 2,000. Larger amounts, it will take about 24 to 48 hours. But we can sort of do that. So you can always just send us a message for the rate of the day, and you just pay in Naira, you get in your account here. So that's something we do as well. Not everybody will be able to get a property before arriving from Nigeria. So I mean, I spoke about England a bit earlier. If you're in Ireland or Scotland or in Wales, then in terms of right to rent, filling that on the website does not apply to yourself. So it's a bit easier. We can sometimes find you an accommodation before you get over here. But the problem with that now, the trend we're seeing is there's a lot of people going to South Wales, the places that used to be quite easy for accommodation. So there's a lot of people heading there at the moment. Wales, bits of Scotland, say like Glasgow, and bits of England as well, sort of like Hull, Chelmsford, Colchester. They're very, very congested now. We have a lot of people heading in the same direction. So it's just even down to the amount of housing stock that's in those areas. There wasn't a lot of properties in the first place, and then to top it off, there's a lot of people copying it. So sometimes there's a bit of a wait period before we can assist in those areas. So those are the areas where I say people should be a bit more ahead in terms of their planning. Don't leave it till the last week. If you're going to somewhere like Pontypridd, if you're going South Wales, Swansea, it's really there's very limited stock in those areas. I'd say if you were going to those areas, make sure you would get everything now where you think in terms of advance rent. You have to make your bid or proposal for the property look a bit more attractive than other people, because what you'll find is you'll go to look at properties and there's about 30 people, 20 other viewings booked in. So there's a lot of demand for very few properties, and that's the issue with those areas. So other than those areas though, other parts of England, East Anglia, Middlesbrough, all those sort of areas, at the moment it's quite easy to get your property. So once you have your right to rent filled out, it's quite easy to negotiate that. So just before we go into the questions and answers, sometimes you might think, why should I use an agent? I mean, after all, I can probably just get there, get it done myself, or I can do things online, which of course, people have tried those sort of options, and sometimes you're lucky, you get something quite on time. Other times it becomes tricky where people get stuck in temporary situations for 1 to 2 months, so you end up spending a lot more money in terms of hotels and Airbnbs, where you're doing this search that's not very coordinated. So that's sort of where we can help, where we can come in. Other things as well, where I talk about, we book hotels, temporary spaces to stay for like a couple of days before you get your biometrics sorted and able to view places sometimes for certain people. The thing is, when you book through us, even if it's the peace of mind we try to give people, because even if there was a mistake on the booking, an example of what happened this morning was, we had a client landing, and we had booked a meet and greet for them, sort of a taxi, which was a special taxi because it needed to be quite a large one. And the company where we booked it with, they cancelled it at the last moment this morning when the client had already landed there. Now, if this was something you had arranged by yourself, you wouldn't understand certain circumstances, such as there's a train strike going on now, so there's a higher demand on taxis, that sort of thing. Because they booked it through us, obviously we just swung into action. There's literally no sort of delay there, and everything got sorted, their money refunded as well. You think of that situation where they've cancelled a booking, they'll probably refund your money, but it'll take 2 or 3 days to come back in your account, so you're having to shell out more funds to sort this, sort of thing. And it's very common in travel. You'll need to do amendments, changes to your reservations, that sort of thing. So this is where there's a bit of an advantage having an agent, working on your side. In terms of property as well, we can reach out to developers, estate agents, sort of other partnerships we have behind the scenes. There's actually properties where you go online, like I said, and that property has just been posted. If it's in an area where there's a lot of pressure, it's probably just been posted not too long ago, and you call the agents, they'll be like, there's 20 people waiting already. Sometimes we get properties that have not yet even been advertised, so it gives you that advantage in certain areas where we can actually do things a bit faster than what the general market is saying. The easiest way to sort of get in contact is to either send us a DM on Instagram. I mean, we would normally get back within a few hours at the most. If it's something urgent, our contact details are on the pages where there's phone numbers. You can always ring through, that sort of thing, and we'll take your request. So if we have any sort of questions, I'll be happy to take those. If not, I mean, the demand at this particular period is really high. I mean, there's so many people coming for January, December at the moment. So, we've already been engaged by quite a few clients, but we're still sort of standing by to take on more customers, just because we're prepared for this period. So if you find, you've been hearing stories about where you're going, it's hard to find a place. Like I said a bit earlier, please don't leave it till when you have 2 or 3 days. I understand how things are sometimes in Nigeria. It's like, you're getting the visa, you're trying to book the tickets, you're trying to do 100 things at once at that period. And sometimes that accommodation is not the most important. It's like you're trying to do all these other things. But it's really important, if you're coming somewhere where there's a lot of pressure, get talking to us at least a month before you aim to arrive here, so that we can get things sorted for you, or at least a concerted plan which swings into action as soon as you're here, where we've lined up the viewings, we've got people properties ready for you to look at, that sort of thing. So these are the things we advise clients to do. Another one is in terms of cost of properties. I mean, everybody wants to pay as little as possible, which is quite obvious. Who wants to pay more? But just with the pressure and the demand, sometimes we advise people, if you add a little bit more to your bid for that property, it might make your proposal stand out. If they're asking for 600 and you say, oh, I'll pay 620, it just shows you want it a bit more, you're a bit more serious. They'll probably want to have you view it first before anyone else, and sort of say, see what you're saying, what do you have to offer, is it 2 months in advance, 3 months, that sort of thing. They'll probably entertain your bid a lot more faster. So as much as you're looking at the bottom of the market, if you see, what I tend to advise people is look at the average for the area you're looking for. If you think you're looking for a 2-bedroom in this area, most properties you see are 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. Aim for the middle, aim for about 1,1. Just be realistic with what you are expecting to spend, because you might think, oh, I want the cheapest property on the market, but you have to realize that your proposal, because you're new into the country, they can't check your last landlord, they don't know where you've lived before, you have no job, they don't know if you can pay. If they take 30 days money for you, will you be able to pay next month? They don't have all these answers. So it's just like, you can imagine people applying for a job and there's so many applications, and it's exactly the same thing. You just think, this one, we won't move forward on that, or you get a very lukewarm response where they're not responding to your messages, that sort of thing. That's what we say. You have to think that it's an open market. You're competing against people who already live here, who are moving home anyway. There's always movements on the market besides this big influx of people coming for study. So yes, that's what you have to bear in mind, that actually, if you aim midway, you have, I'd sort of say 80%, 90% chance of landing that property, as opposed to going for the cheapest one on the market. Everyone else is going for that. All the people here who live here already are going for that. Except you're ready to offer a bit more or look at something else. So that would be sort of wild advice in that circumstance. Okay, so there's people messaging me anyway, so which is great. I mean, someone just saying they're coming to Cardiff on the 29th of January. I need a 1-bedroom flat furnished within Cardiff. Okay. So, that we can certainly look into for you. You are in good time. But one thing I tend to advise people is, if you're going to start early, I know it's great to start early. But I mean, there's a limit to how early you want to start searching. I think the good spot is about 3 weeks to 4 weeks before you arrive. That sort of time to start looking, seeing what's out there, booking and viewings, which we'll do on your behalf before you arrive. That sort of thing. Start the referencing going. On your arrival, all we'll be waiting for is the BRP card. So, I mean, if you're coming over 6 weeks or 8 weeks away, the truth of it is, if we found a property that was suitable now and we started the whole process, even went through everything and got it completed, they would expect you to pay rent from as soon as that is completed. So the normal referencing process and everything usually takes about a week to 2 weeks. So that's why we say if we start searching 3 weeks or 4 weeks before, it gives us time to find about 5 properties that are suitable to your requirements, line them up, start talking to the agencies, or if you're in an area where we have something in stock, we'll put that straight through to you, and then it's a bit easier with the timescales. But that's what you need to bear in mind. So I'd say just stay in contact with us, tell us what you're looking for. We'll certainly note it all down, get it all, and I'll send you a bit more information as well on how we, the budgets and what's going on in that area in Cardiff at the moment. But like I said, Cardiff is one where there's a lot of pressure as well in Wales. I'd say if you're coming on the 29th, we'll start looking for you in the new year. It's just being reasonable. It's coming up to Christmas as well. A lot of things are going to be closed. They won't be offering viewing. So it's good you're coming at the end of January, which is great. So, it gives a bit of time in January for things to start up again and everything to start going. I'd say we'll start looking for you in the new year, and definitely we could get something there. In terms of the budget, I don't know if you were on the call a bit earlier in terms of what we said. So that budget, you could probably find something in that range. Just depends on how far you want to be close to the center of Cardiff, or if you want to be traveling in a bit further out, and then you might pay a cheaper sort of rent. So yes, definitely I'd say give us a heads up in January, and I would send you some more detailed information on that request. Thank you. Someone has just sent a message. Thank you. I don't know if you want me to mention the names. I'll just read what the questions are, and hopefully it's useful to other people as well, and you can get something out of that. They said you move into the UK in January with a skilled work visa. So, you're in a great position in terms of accommodation and just settling in, because if you're coming in on a skilled visa, most times you already have a job offer. So that letter of employment just makes it more easier. You can prove you can afford the rent. We can get a lot of stuff going before you actually arrive in that sense. So, it's a bit more better than people coming on the dependence or route, but, it's still more or less the same. They would still need that letter to prove you can pay that. You still need the right to rent, seeing as where you're coming to, you say Essex is within England, so you need to prove your right to rent on the government website. You can normally do it with your visa, but most times you need to do it with your BRP, your biometric card. So yes, currently in need of accommodation. Yeah. So definitely we can engage with your request. That should be quite an easy one in Southend. Also, it'll depend on the budget you're looking to pay as well. You haven't mentioned the budget. I can give you a bit of information on that if you give me a few seconds, and you can just see. I'm also going to have a look. Since you've mentioned that, I'll come back to it anyway if we have anything in that area, because the properties we manage are constantly coming, onto the market and off the market. So, anything around London, sort of the south, we tend to have more properties in these areas where we actually work with the landlords. So that might be one where we have something. And it will depend on the size of the property as well, if it was a 2-bedroom, which you haven't mentioned. But Southend is not too expensive. If you've just joined, please, and you have any sort of questions, send me a DM and I will respond. Just having a bit of issues, I can't see your comments. So if you send me a DM, I'd respond to your query. So any sort of questions, please send them to me in the DMs. You can put them in the comments anyway. But if you send in the DM, that'd be great. I would be able to answer you straight away now. So Southend, if you were looking at a 2-bed, you'd be looking somewhere in the range of £900, 900 to £1,000 per month in Southend in Essex. So that's for a 2-bed. A 1-bed, you're probably looking at 800 to 900. So you haven't said what size you want. But like I said, if you're coming on a skilled visa, that puts you in a great position in terms of the timescales and completing. It'll make the referencing go through a bit more faster. So yeah, if you want to, like I said, I'll send you some messages at the end of the call and just give you a bit more information on the area and get some more details off you, because depends on the exact postcode where you're going. I know you say Southend, but it's quite a big area as well. So that would just depend on all of that, and then we can tell you a bit better. So, send me a message if you have any particular sort of questions. I mean, I should probably be here till 9. Any questions on accommodation, anything else you'd like to know generally in terms of migrating, how your first few days will feel, what you need to get together in that period where you just arrive. If you need more information about the town you're coming to, just what's available locally, that sort of thing. We create guides for people, just sort of tell you what's about there, what you can get involved with, where you can shop. It's important to know where the African food is, that sort of thing. So obviously you'll find these things out eventually by yourself. But it's always important sometimes to have a bit of a discussion, because it could definitely go some way to informing decisions you might make and just giving you heads up on certain situations. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who will say, oh, I'm coming to London, I'm happy to live 2 hours away to save money on rent, which, ideally that's what everyone wants to do. But then the same person has not considered the cost of what a train ticket will be for that 2 hours daily. You've not considered the frequency of the trains, all that sort of thing. So when if you raise something like that with us and explain what you think you're after, if it's feasible, we'll discuss that with you. If there's anything you need to be thinking about, we'll let you know, because if you're moving from city to city, it's more expensive trains than sort of the train tickets for within London, that sort of thing. So, and that's another thing as well. People have the travel card for London, which is the Oyster card. And then one day somebody outside London invites you for something, and then you go in thinking you can use the Oyster card. Sometimes there's no barriers. You will enter the train. Nobody will ask you anything. And then in the middle of the train, they'll come and check your tickets. You have the wrong ticket. So I've had 2 people where that's happened to, who just came over recently in the last few months, and then they've gotten fines. So, and at the end of the day, when they come back and tell me these things, I say, oh, you should speak to me. So, I mean, if we help you find the house, you can call me 3 months down the line and say, please, I need advice on this. And it's just everything about when you just land. We definitely want to speak to people on that, advise you on that, any sort of way we can help. And that's not, that's just ask us a question, we'll give you some answers. Okay. Okay, so this lady has given a bit more information, saying she will be a shared apartment in Southend. So with the skilled work visa, I mean, that's definitely a very easy one. That's one we can get for you before you arrive. So if you definitely wanted to proceed with that, I'll pick that up with you at the end of the call. Okay, and then it sounds like you might need something more for short term, since you'll be coming alone for now. That's another thing for people to also consider, because I get a lot of people who say, I want to rent 1-bedroom flat for now because it's just me coming, or just half of the family coming, and then in 2 months' time, or in April, in April we want a 3-bedroom. If it's a shared apartment or a room somewhere, then it's easier to get out of the contracts within a month or two to sort of say, I don't want to continue, because you'd have probably signed a 6 months or 12-month contract. With flats, if you've taken a place that you think is going to be temporary, most times you've signed a 6 to 12-month contract. So if you say, oh, I'm just going to take this place for a short time till my family come, please be very wary about contracts and what you sign, what you get into. If you go and sign a 12-month contract, they may end up holding on to your deposit, which is 1 month or up to 5-6 weeks of rent. They probably won't give you that back if you decide to leave. There might be also other financial penalties and that sort of thing. So if you definitely think you're going to move fairly soon, just give a lot of consideration to the contract and where you move into, just so that you don't get into something you can't get out of. So, but like you said, for a room, if it's a shared apartment, you can probably get a place for 2 to 3 months. And like you said, on the skilled work visa, that should be quite easy. So I will send you a bit more information on that after this call, and you can certainly pick that up for you. Okay, so apologies if you've just joined. If you have any sort of questions, send me a DM, and I will respond to your inquiries. I do apologize, I can't see the comments at the moment, so just having a slight issue. Okay, so how much rent do you need in advance? You're asking someone else. Okay. So, it just really depends on the type of property you are looking to rent. Your own circumstances as well within that will determine the sort of advance rent that a landlord will take. It's not a sort of bidding thing back and forth. Sometimes it could be. But say, for instance, if you're renting a room in a shared apartment, most times you don't need as much advance rent. You could have 2 to 3 months of the rent, and that's probably fine, because you need 1 month deposit, 1 month rent usually, and you could offer an extra month just to put their mind at ease that you paid 2 months, and that gives you time to get a job. If you're renting a flat, it's usually a bit more stricter because it's a 12-month contract, so you're going to be on that contract for longer. So if you don't have a job yet when you arrive, they tend to ask for between 3 to 6 months of rent in advance plus your security deposit. And it's just about that, not having a job. Now, if you could come, or your dependent comes first, stays in a smaller place for a month or 2, gets a job, starts working, earning money, and you can show, then within a month, you may not need to save that money. But then that's just the thing, if you have a place to stay that long. So yeah, it just depends on if you actually have a place to stay in that temporary period, and then and that would determine if that's something you can do. Otherwise, that's where the advanced rent comes in. Also, the bigger the property, it tends to be more rent they ask for upfront, which is a bigger burden. So if you're trying to get a 3 or 4 bedroom, they might ask you for 6 months upfront. So it's already a big rent, and then they're asking for a lot more. But it's just due to the history of things here with accommodation, because even here we have people who are like squatters. At the end of their tenancy, they don't want to leave. They cause issues for the landlord. They would easily evict them after about a month or 2, but it's just the cost for the landlord and the hassle. They don't want that. They just want someone that will pay the rent. So, this is why they tend to ask for a bit more rent upfront. Also, I think at the beginning of this influx last year, where a lot more students started coming in, earlier this year as well, I've had stories from estate agents who have had a few bad experiences with students coming in, where they just give them the 1 month rent, 1 month deposit. At the end of the 30 days, you don't have a job yet. You might have issues getting money from Nigeria, and then you're a bit stuck, and it just becomes a bit of it's not what you want to be dealing with in your first month in the country. You start talking about you can't pay the rent, You know, I know the hustle. We all try to get by on what we can. But this is what we're hoping to do, is just educate people a bit more that if you are able to afford that, pay upfront, get it out of the way, a bit more peace of mind. It gives you that you just relocating to a new country. There'll be hundreds of things to think about, you know, the new job, the new school for the kids, the new routine. How does this work? Where do we get that? You're learning a whole new system of driving. The list is literally endless of things, you know. And I tell people a lot of the time, settling into a new country, it's a whole, you know, it's a whole thing. It does take a while. The thing with the UK is things are not as fast as Nigeria, where in Nigeria you can achieve certain things really quickly if you have the funds to. Here everything takes time. Everything is a process, you know. It's like even with the houses, you think, oh, we just see the house we like, offer the money, and you know, you should close the deal within a day or two. But there's that process of referencing, takes a couple of weeks. So that's everything across day-to-day life here, where you know, there's that process built into things. So I tell people to fully settle into the country, sometimes it'll take you close to 2 years, and you're still feeling like you're still just getting off the ground. You know, I picked up a lady from the airport a few weeks ago, and we were having a discussion while we were coming through, and she thought, oh, I've got so much in Nigeria, I'm only going to stay, you know, just a brief period and then I'll go back. And I said, well, do you want to own a property here one day? You know, after the whole struggle and everything, if, you know, we get through to the point of citizenship. And she said, yeah, sure. I said, even just thinking of becoming a citizen and everything along that goes with that, that's an easy 10-year journey. That's an easy 10-year journey. The getting everything sorted after your studies, you know, the time it takes to save up a deposit for a house, you know, averagely now you'd need somewhere between 40, 50, 60,000 pounds to put on as a deposit for your first mortgage, you know, and that goes hand in hand with your credit history as well. You will find it hard to access credit in the first few months to about a year while you're in the UK. It's just because they don't have any history for you. It's normal for everyone. It takes time to build history. There's also this funny thing where you need to take credit to actually get a credit history. So our culture as Nigerians, we tend to not want to do anything on credit card or loan, or let me be debt free, or let me, you know, but as you go along on the journey, you tend to need to take a few of these things out to even show you're in the system. So, you know, when you actually need the credit, it's there for you. So it's so many other little factors that go into it that you don't realize how much time it will take to relocate to a new place. And that's not a negative. It's just what it is. You know, it takes time to settle in. You know, so these are the things we try advise people is, if you speak to us, we can give you a more realistic idea of how certain things will look, you know, how certain things will feel. There's no way anyone can explain it to you like when you come for yourself and actually see it and live it, and it's a lived experience. But I mean, we'll always do our best in the interim to just give you a realistic expectation. I tend not to want to over glorify things, or, you know, just give you so you know what you are dealing with. And it's not I think the problem we're finding as well is a lot of times the people who have helped to apply for visas, the travel agents and that, have given a lot of wrong information to people, obviously in order to just encourage them to apply and get them to pay for the visa processing. And they'll tell you wrong information about housing here, like, oh, you can just live 2 hours away and take train. But that train is £80 go and come. So it's like, what are you talking about? You know, you can't literally afford to do that for 4 days of school because you want to live in a cheaper area, which is 3 hours away by train. is £600 a month. But when you think of what you will pay for the trains, everything has its checks and balances in this society. So London is like the most expensive area, but at the same time, in terms of pay, it's where jobs are easier to get. It's where you will get a higher sort of pay. So it also balances out. If you're in a cheaper area, less opportunities for work, and they tend to pay a bit lower. So you sort of get what you sign up for, whatever experience you sign up for in that regard. And so please, if you've just joined, you can send any questions in the DMs. I'm so sorry I can't see your comments at the moment. Just having a few issues with this live. I'm hoping to do a few more lives, to get a bit more out of this period before January, especially for the people resuming in January. So if you have any sort of pressing questions, anything you would like answered, I'm hoping across the holidays we can get a few more in, but I seem to just be having some difficulties today. So yes, if you have anything, please send me a message. I got 2 more. It's another one for South Wales. So I'm not too sure if you were here earlier. That's one of the areas where there's a lot of pressure on properties right now. South Wales, Cardiff, where else would I say? Hull, Portsmouth. It's a bit tight there as well. Some bits of England, Colchester, Chelmsford. It's really difficult in these areas because they're quite close to London, Milton Keynes as well. So everybody who didn't want to quite be in London is just on the outskirts. So those areas are really, there's a lot of pressure there now. And some bits of Scotland as well. So that would probably be around Glasgow and Aberdeen. Not as bad. It's a little less pressure renting in Scotland anyway, but the hoops you have to jump through, there's not as many. But just so many people going in the same area. So I will answer you in detail. I will answer your comments in detail, but just bearing in mind that is one of the high pressure. Hello there. Can a family of 4 stay in a 1-bedroom? Okay, so I hope you're still there. Okay. So yes, the oldest is 4 years old. So a family of 4, can you stay in 1 bedroom? Now, I don't know if you were here at the start when I spoke about expectations in terms of sizes of properties that you go for. I was talking a bit earlier. It's like if you have 5 people, 5 occupants or 6 occupants, 2 parents, 4 kids, bear in mind their gender, so male, female, would determine how many rooms you need. So boys and girls can share up to the age of 10. So till about 10 years old, they can share a room. As soon as you hit puberty, about 10, they want boys and girls in separate rooms. That's the ideal situation. And then, you can still have 2 or 3 girls in 1 room, or boys in 1 room sharing a bunk bed. As long as they're all boys, that's fine. But it's just if you have a mix of boys and girls. So I don't have the full picture. You said, can a family of 4 stay in 1 bedroom? Your oldest is 4. Like I said, we understand the rules they're saying about overcrowding. Sometimes we can get around these rules. So your situation sounds like one that you might be able to get away with that. If I were you, I would go for a 1 bedroom that's not furnished. So if there's no furnishings, and would probably look at something for you where it's not open plan kitchen, because what you get a lot in the modern flats is the kitchen is attached to the living room. So it's 1 big room and the kitchen is just on one side. So even for African cooking, those are not great because you've got the smell all across the living room. So ideally you'd look for a 1 bedroom with a separate living room and a separate room. And if it's not furnished, now you can kind of adjust the living room to suit what you need to do for now, maybe for a short 6-month term contract, and then upgrade to a 2-bedroom as time goes along, that's something you can certainly look at. So that's how I would say you can get around that sort of situation. It's just being tactical, because you want furniture, but at the same time, you want to structure the property to your own requirements. You want it to not be as rigid, You can put a sofa bed in the living room, so in the daytime it changes to a chair. But in the daytime it changes to a sofa, you use that for entertaining, and then at night you can convert it to a bed. So that's why it's a bit better if you furnish your own place. If you Yes, so I can speak to you a bit more about that, your question in terms of a family of 4 staying in 1 bedroom. You haven't told me the genders of the kids, if they're boys or girls, so that would depend as well. So if you've got 1 boy, 1 girl, and then there's you and your partner, so that's, you, mom and dad need 1 room. If it's a boy and girl, and okay, the oldest is 4, so they can still share now. Yes, so it doesn't matter actually. If your oldest is 4, you're fine. It's only if they're over 10. So you can probably get away with it now. Just getting a 1 bedroom that's not furnished and walk away. And that applies to, okay, a boy and a girl. Okay, perfect. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're 4, they're fine. Just get them separate little beds, and yeah. That will certainly work. You can walk around the living room, like we said, get a 1 bedroom that's not furnished, and that will save you a bit of money. Depends on the area, it might be a bit of effort. If the difference in your area where you are searching is only about £100, then sometimes it might just be go for that. But I think we had a chat earlier, and it is quite an expensive area you're going for, so it'll save you about $250 a month. So it might be one you can do. Okay, so I'll just move on to another question quickly. For a shared apartment in Birmingham, what's the cost? So the thing is, it will depend on what part of Birmingham you are referring to. Birmingham is quite large. I'd say you'd expect to pay anything between £300 to £400 a month, just off the back of my head, because we've been looking for a few students around Aston University and what's the other one? But yeah, if you're looking around Birmingham, I'd say 400 will tie you in. You can get places of about 350 as well, so somewhere between 300 to 400 per month. And that should come with bills as well, because it's a shared property. So if you're single and going for a shared property, you're kind of in the best situation. That's the cost for that. So if you send me a more detailed message, I think we had a bit of a chat a few months ago in October. Okay, so yeah, so send me a bit more detail. I will send you a few questions just to get a bit more context about where you're going. We can certainly help with that. If you're going for a shared apartment, our service charge is slightly cheaper as well than if you are renting a whole apartment or a flat, then it's slightly more expensive.